back to Been There, Watch That, and we're back here again to review another movie. In past shows, we've explored some other movies from the 90s: Home Alone, Reservoir Dogs, What About Bob, Son of a Woman, American Beauty, which had Kevin Spacey, and Kevin Spacey's gonna play a role in this one this week. This is a fan pick, sort of. We used our list, we put our heads together. Myself, Justin, I'm here with Dave and Joe, and
Woohoo!
last week we got together and decided on The Usual Suspects from 1995.
What a good fan pick.
Yeah, I know this has been a movie that's been on your list.
It's on my. It was
quite
number
a
one
while.
on my list. Number
Yes.
one on my list. When I made a list, this was the first one.
I'd seen in other movies and just like pop culture so many times Kaiser Soze, and I would just see it and be like, I don't know what they're talking about or what that is, and now I know. Now I'm in the know. Kaiser Soze.
Now you know 2 more entries on Jeopardy.
Yeah. Kaiser Soze. So, what'd you guys think? Did it live up to the hype?
It was
Different.
it has an odd quality to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something odd about it.
Okay.
But it's a thinker, and
Yeah, it's definitely a thinker.
I
So I wasn't
watched it
sure
with
how
my
to go.
dad, and we talked about it for 10 minutes after, kind of.
Yeah. Nice. Okay.
Did you see this part? That part? Kind of a whodunit type of thing.
Okay.
This is a big.
It was different because I know you always compared it to Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
And that was my expectation going in,
Yeah.
but from my standpoint, it was completely different than what.
Yeah. I compared it to Reservoir Dogs just because it was kind of a thinker that had
Gritty.
some twists in it.
Yeah, gritty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Joe, you want to give us a rundown?
I sure can. Following a truck hijacked in New York, 5 criminals are arrested and brought together for questioning. As none of them are guilty, they plan a revenge operation against the police. The operation goes well, but the influence of the legendary mastermind criminal called Kaiser, and how's
Soze.
is felt. It becomes clear that each one of them has wronged Soze at some point and must pay back now. The payback job leaves 27 men dead in a boat explosion, but the real question arises now: who actually is Kaiser Soze?
Yeah.
So
It's a pretty good synopsis.
so the actor, some of the actors in this film is Kevin Spacey. He went by Verbal, and he's been in American Beauty, which you can find in our archives, and L.A. Confidential. Stephen Baldwin plays McManus, and he's known for Biodome and Fred Claus. Kevin Pollak plays Hockney, and he's known for The Whole 10 Yards and A Few Good Men. Benicio del Toro plays Finster, and he's known for Guardians of the Galaxy. Giancarlo I apologize ahead of time.
Esposito.
There you go. Plays Jack Bear. He's known for Breaking Bad, The Jungle Book, and Do the Right Thing. Felipe Simone plays Forder. Is known for Robin Hood, Iron Man 2, and Alias. Christine Estabrook plays Dr. Plumer. Is known for Spider-Man 2 and Desperate Housewives. And Clark Gregg plays Dr. Walters. He's known for The Avengers, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and The New Adventures of Old Christine.
So Benicio del Toro looked like a child in this one, which was kind of crazy. I'd never seen. I'd always seen movies with Benicio del Toro being older.
Yeah.
See him as like a kid.
Well, I mean, it was,
Yeah.
10,
totally
almost
different
20
look.
years ago.
Same with Giancarlo Esposito. In Breaking Bad, he's a much older, more distinguished-looking gentleman, and this he's looks way younger. I don't know if either of you guys watched Breaking Bad.
No, I haven't.
I started it and couldn't get past the first episode.
Yeah, it's a big commitment.
And my buddy told me, he said, if you get past the first episode, you'll fall in love with it. So like, I had a hard time getting past the first episode. He
Yeah.
said, just give it an actual chance. So I've not given it a chance, but I've heard great things about it.
Yeah, one of those that, a payoff maybe a season or two later, but for someone that doesn't want to sit through a couple seasons, just
Yeah, I don't know. I've never been attracted to it. All right, so think piece, a little bit of a crime mystery thriller. Did you see the ending coming at all?
No.
And hold on, so let's back up.
Okay.
Joe, you haven't seen it.
No, I have not
Justin,
seen it.
had you seen it? I can't remember. Okay, so neither.
Nope.
I'd seen it before. A couple times.
A couple times.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite lists, I guess. Of just a unique turn and so what was your favorite part about it?
Go. Justin, you want to go first?
If you've got some. Go
Okay.
ahead.
My favorite part was just Kevin.
Explosions?
Actually,
There were some pretty cool fireballs. That boat exploded. Sorry, Joe. I was just kidding.
I know you. I was waiting on. I'm surprised you jumped on it first because I was waiting on Dave to catch. You're on your A game today.
Yeah.
I loved Kevin Spacey's character, Verbal. You know, they would ask him a question, he would answer, then he'd just trail off into no man's land, and I just found that hilarious. Is like
I was in a four-man. He was in some sort of singing group,
Acapella group.
Yeah.
In
Saskatchewan or
Illinois,
yeah.
And it's like instead of trying to beat the answers out of him, they're just trying to almost want to beat him just to shut him up.
Yeah. Well, he kind of played off that character. He had a disability, and he just real meek and mild, and he wanted to believe. He had friends, blah blah blah. So what got me, my favorite part was Finster's dialect. You couldn't understand him, and just the way he talked, I was so drawn to that. I was like, that's so weird. And he's so hard to understand. Yeah. Benicio del Toro, and but I just listen to him talk and stuff, and everybody looking at him in the beginning is like, what the heck did he just say? What? But just kind of the way he did that, the way he trailed off in his speech pattern and stuff.
Before Justin gives his, can I drop a little factoid about that?
Yeah.
Okay, so due to his bizarre dialect in the film was reportedly so unintelligible during one scene, Stephen Baldwin actually forgot his cue due to being unable to understand what Del Toro had said.
Yeah,
that's
I think he
bad.
actually did a whole, what did you say? And they left it in the film, but that wasn't on purpose. It wasn't part of the script.
That's funny, but that's bad at the same time as like you play your character so well that you throw everybody else off as they have no idea where they're at in the story. So Justin, what was your favorite part of the movie?
The ending. Not because I hated it.
The credits, or
not because I hated it and I wanted it to end, but the way everything the craziness at the end, and as the police officers kind of piecing it together, like there's this whole montage where he realizes, like you said, where Kevin Spacey's character is just going off on these tangents. He realizes he was actually like reading stuff from like a poster on the wall. He was just making up stories based on stuff,
the bottom of his coffee cup.
Redfoot, and just that whole scene where possibly Kaiser Sose walks out the
front
place,
door. Loses the limp, gets in the car. Kobayashi, I thought, played a really good role in it as well. He's neutral blank face is just amazing.
Because they're like, what's keeping us from just killing you right now? And he had the confidence that they weren't going to do it because he knew that.
Yeah, well, I mean, what benefit? Like he told him, there's no benefit. Kill me now, it doesn't change anything. But I really, that was one of my favorite parts. I think is when at the end when he's walking and you see his limp go away and his hand, he flexes his fingers and and then the policeman that. And I think I'm a big fan of the police, but. He had that overbearing, I know more than you, and I'm going to browbeat you into admitting this.
Yeah.
Starts to put it together, and it's like, I just got...
Yeah, the player got played.
Got played, yeah. I got worked over. And puts it all together, and then, that poor guy in the hospital, they show him a drawing, he's like, he was sitting here in front of me the whole time.
Yeah, what'd you think of that drawing? I thought it almost looked like Kobayashi, too. They could have gone either way.
Yeah, I mean, they're both kind of...
my dad and I were just kind of debating that back and forth. I mean, it seems pretty obvious that Kevin Spacey's character is Kaiser Sose, but it's not 100%.
Does it though, really? I was going to say, I would
it's
almost
not 100%
say...
because they flashed back and forth.
Yeah, it's almost a little bit of a toss-up.
I thought it could be Kobayashi on the boat shooting Keaton or whatever,
Right.
Kind of the guy in the trench coat and the top hat, this mysterious person they keep referring to and showing the scenes on the boat. That is supposedly Kaiser, but...
I mean, and it's such a tough deal because they kind of mixed in the message. The main message at first was, is Keaton dead or alive?
Yeah.
Because he's Kaiser Sose.
Right.
You know, and then
Kind of reminds me of Clue in a way, not.
yeah.
It's like this weird, totally who done it type of thing. That
Right.
Clue movie kind of had.
But that's the beauty of it. It's so wrapped in itself with the stories that it leaves you doubting. So that's, even at first you're like, yeah, it's Keaton. He's the mastermind. Put all this together. The policeman's right. And then you see him walk out, and you're like, yeah. And so there was one poignant moment for me. I'm gonna save it to see where you guys go, but remind me to come back to it.
A lot of flashbacks, and I think Joe, before the show, we talked a little bit. This definitely can be a confusing movie. If you step out to get a drink of water from the kitchen, come back, you might totally miss something.
Yes.
Yeah, I struggled at several points in the movie trying to keep up with where I was in the movie, and so and most movies I love a good movie that'll switch back and forth because that keeps my attention span. But this one, I don't know why, but this one I just found rather difficult to get the whole plot in place of. Because they were just so much flipping back and forth.
Yeah, back and forth in time a lot. And it starts out, it says like San Pedro or something, yesterday, and then it comes to today, and then it flashes back to like
6 weeks ago. It's all over the map. I mean, if it's one of those, if they would, maybe if they would just, keep going back and forth between two different points, I think that might have been better. But there was like 4 different points that you had to stay on the map on, and I got lost.
And Kevin Spacey's the narrator of this, and it's his voice throughout because he's basically in the police station being interrogated by this police officer, and he's like, all right, well, tell me what happened, and then it'll flash back, to the scene from. But if he's telling him what happened, it's not necessarily what actually happened. Like.
Yeah.
It'll show something, but you're not quite sure if that's real or if that's just Kevin Spacey's character lying, and there's a lot of back and forth like that.
And that's the crazy part. How much did he make up? Because you see the board, and he's making up all these stories, but yet, the board or the boat got blown up, and they had all these killings, and so what part was real, what part wasn't?
Yes, so it really blurs the lines.
Yeah, because how do you have all that story unfold like it did, but yet be made up of things that he pulled, like bottom of his coffee cup off the poster board,
the billboard, the cork board itself.
Yeah, that's so. What really happened that led to the boat being blown up and the one guy that could identify Kaiser Sose being killed?
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing that I didn't see on the first watch, but then my dad and I were kind of skipping around. Like we pulled up Amazon Prime and did the search feature to different parts. Okay, let's go back and look at that again. And when Kevin Spacey's walking out of the police station, there's the guy that gives you your stuff that you had when you were coming in, and he says 1 gold lighter, 1 pack of cigarettes, all this stuff. So that made me think. At the very beginning of the film, the guy has a gold lighter. Kaiser, before he shoots him, he uses the gold lighter.
Set the boat on fire.
Yeah, that was just something I didn't notice.
I didn't even catch that. Never even hit my radar.
Yeah. I would suggest you guys watch it again. Now that you know the ending, watch it again, and it changes.
Okay.
But yeah, that's definitely a thinker for sure. You could spend a while trying to pick it apart.
Yeah, there's lots of little stuff.
And the Redfoot guy, was he even real? I guess, or.
Well, that's what I mean. He's made up off of the poster, off the corkboard. So, but I mean, you had to. How do you get to the boat and having that deal go down with those people getting killed? And
right,
is Keaton alive or dead because everything burned up? So somehow something had to happen to get to that point.
Right. But we don't know what's real and what's memorized.
Right. So it's kind of crazy to think in those terms. So that's what really gets me about this movie every time. Is just could be completely 100% fabricated, or parts of it could be real and he just changed the names.
Yeah, to protect
because
the innocent.
or just because he doesn't want them to kind of track down anything. So he just changed names. But that's what really have. Like maybe they did have to go meet with Redfoot, but it was just somebody else. Maybe
Right.
it's hard to tell.
So I found this interesting. Speaking of Redfoot, when Redfoot flicks a cigarette into the face of McManus,
Yeah.
it was originally intended to hit his chest. So Stephen Baldwin's reaction,
Yeah. Was
100%
real.
legit.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, it was not intended to hit him in the face like that. So that was
Wow.
100% unscripted, legit
Yeah.
reaction.
That guy, the Redfoot guy, I recognized him from The Mask. He was like a bad guy in The Mask. I don't know if you guys ever saw that one. Jim
I-
Carrey.
I've
Okay.
not-
Yeah. Yeah.
That is one of the few
He's
Jim Carrey
been in
movies I've
some-
not seen.
Been in some B-level movies, I guess. He did a good job though. I liked it.
Bryan Singer. Oh no,
Is that?
Brian, that's the director.
yeah, that's the director. Sorry.
Wonder what else he's directed. But yeah, this. I kind of I appreciate. I was at the end of it. I was like, what did I think of this movie? And the one thing I came away with is like I kind of appreciate this total change of pace of a movie that does not say here's what happened or
Yeah. Well,
or
it's funny
beginning, middle, end. This is all very obvious. This was a total like head scratcher.
because it's funny that they basically show you the end at the beginning,
Yeah.
and sometimes those movies I hate those because it's like, yeah, now you just show me how you got to that point, but just the way this one was wrote, even though I was confused through most of it,
Mm-hmm.
the end of it, how they got to that point, it still wasn't the beginning wasn't a spoiler. Now I knew, I just had a gut feeling at the beginning when they kept zooming in on the pile of rope and stuff. I was like,
Right.
okay, that is
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Yeah.
find out what happens with
Yeah.
that at the end.
Yeah.
But had no idea that Kevin Spacey was sitting on the backside of that, or
Or was
according
he?
to the story, he
Yeah.
was sitting at the backside of that, watching everything go down.
Yeah. Watching unfold.
Yeah, because I was looking at it, it's like, okay, there's ropes and just stuff sitting there. What's the big deal
Mm-hmm.
with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Kevin Spacey won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. And yeah, what I read was that he wasn't necessarily a household name or anything before this movie, and this kind of propelled him into the movie star he became later.
Really?
Yeah. I thought that. So, what'd you guys think of the cast? Were you happy with how everybody was played out?
I think so. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I thought
Yeah.
Benicio was on point for Finster. I know they had somebody lined up. That one of the facts was they had somebody lined up. I thought, Gabriel Byrne did a great job as Keaton. He sold me that he was
Yeah.
an ex-policeman and was probably a little dirty. You know.
McManus maybe was my least favorite. But
Really?
He was alright.
I mean,
He
I
was
didn't.
doing the whole, I'm a little crazy thing.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I mean, he
Some
almost
of the-
seemed like a knucklehead that's trying to scam the system, and yeah, he's acting like he's a little crazy.
Some of the little spats between him and the other guy.
Hockney.
Yeah. Where they're just, like, 1 inch from each other's face. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you want to dance?
Yeah, I thought Kevin Pollak did a good job.
Yeah.
mhm.
And then of course Chaz, who plays Dave Cujon or whatever it was, the policeman. I thought he did a really good job. And Pete Postlewaite as Kobayashi nailed it. I mean, home run
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah. I agree with that.
And the lady Edie, I thought she did a great job. Susie
Yeah.
Cameron,
Mm-hmm.
and then Dan Hyde, who played Sergeant Jeffries, I thought he did a great job. So I don't know. I mean, I can't really see anybody switching in and out. Maybe.
The one person and I just literally saw this episode last night, which got me to thinking about it. During the police lineup scene,
Mm-hmm.
And his name escapes me, the actor that played Kramer on Seinfeld. They had an episode where he
goes in the lineup.
Yeah, he goes in police lineup, and the way they was all cutting up, I was like, oh, I would love to have seen Kramer right there in that lineup just because.
Yeah. Just to wreak a little bit more havoc.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh, what is his name? It's gonna drive me nuts.
I don't know that I knew his real name.
Played by Michael Richards. There we go.
Michael Richards
Yes.
is Kramer.
Yes.
Wow. The things you learn in this podcast.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
That's why you come here.
Yeah, now we tag that not only entertainment but educational as well.
Yeah.
All right, so did you guys know how this title came along?
Mm-mm.
So this title actually came from a famous line in Casablanca, or how do you pronounce that? Casablanca, or
Yeah, Casablanca.
there's a famous line and it says, "Round up the usual suspects," and that's where
Mm-hmm.
the title came from. And this movie was shot over a period of 35 days.
Yeah, they had to do it in 5 weeks. And that had something to do with Gabriel Byrne. He's like, hey, I can only take this part if it's in Los Angeles because of personal issues, and if it's in 5 or 6 weeks. And they said no problem. They're planning on that anyway, so it worked out well.
It's kind of impressive. I'm impressed now a little bit more. I mean, to pull that off in that amount of time, that's
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there weren't too many tricky scenes that needed a lot of time. The boat explosion and all that stuff was probably the main one. The rest of them were kind of just talking scenes.
Yeah.
yeah. I guess maybe the
I mean, the cave and the
shooting
ocean.
wasn't complex, but the editing was. It seemed like
Yeah, I mean, there had to be a lot of editing, but that's
So,
not.
yeah.
You don't need a lot of shots on
Yeah.
crazy locations. I guess there isn't crazy locations.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, the boat dock and the police station were the two biggest.
Yeah, the rest of it was.
Yeah. I mean, that's where most of the movie was held, was either at the dock or at the police station.
Yeah, I mean, the Kaiser Sose original story, they shot that somewhere, but I mean, it wasn't that big a deal.
Right.
Set. But yeah,
Yeah.
kind of crazy. Simple movie. I wonder, do you have any budget information?
Yes. The budget was an estimated $6 million.
Okay.
And all the actors worked for less than their usual fees. So the gross in the United States and Canada was over 23 million. Opening weekend brought over 645,000 alone. That was on August 20th of 1995. So worldwide, it was over 23 million.
Yeah,
Is what this movie brought in.
that's not a ton compared to some of the movies we looked at.
No, but I
not
mean,
bad
it's,
for the budget and so forth.
it's almost 4 times the budget. So I mean,
Yeah,
it's still
they made money.
yeah, oh yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So, who was your favorite character out of all of them?
Kevin Spacey's by far just
Yeah.
and the appreciation for him grew for me a whole other level once he walks out of the police department and they
Mhm.
feel and then it slaps him upside the head like, yeah, you had the mastermind right there in front of you. The
Yeah,
player got
yeah.
played. I mean, that was just like, wow. He took him on this wild ride of
Yeah.
Justin.
I kind of liked Keaton, but Spacey was good too.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of felt sorry for Kevin Spacey and was buying his story as, yeah, he's just the knucklehead they had involved by accident, almost. Not by accident, but I guess as a last choice.
Or maybe Kobayashi might be my favorite. Not really. He's good though.
Yeah, from a critical standpoint, Kobayashi played it to the T. He was the right character for that job. For sure. No questions on my behalf. Yeah, I mean, interesting film. I watched it again and I was like, yeah.
Did you have a different take or see anything different since you've seen this before?
Every time I watch it, I notice other little stuff. So,
Would this be considered a cult classic?
I gotta think so.
It's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
It has 1 million ratings on IMDb, so a lot of people have seen it, even though maybe it's not a high budget film at all, or
Yeah.
a little bit underground, not totally mainstream.
Yeah, because I mean, only netting that kind of profit. I mean, I know it's 4 times, but that's not, nowadays. Shoot, they don't want anything. It seems like to go out unless it's going to make like 100 million first weekend. So what was there any part of the movie that you looked at and you said, okay, this just doesn't make sense, this doesn't add up, this is a bad scene to have? And I know we've talked in the past, had some scenes that just drug out way too long and something that didn't make sense. Was there any of that? Did you notice any of that going on?
I didn't. Justin, did you? Like I said, I was confused in a lot of it, so so I honestly can't tell you if the scene was needed in there or not, because I was confused through a lot of it. So.
I think it was meant to be that way.
Well, it worked.
Yep.
I thought when they thought that they could go and threaten Kobayashi, who supposedly works for the most secretive and capable they thought they could go to him and be like, hey, just so you know, we can get you anytime. I don't know. That seemed like a kind of boneheaded move, and that just kind of got shut down pretty quickly. That whole thing where they go in and kill a couple guys in the elevator
Yeah.
Yeah.
and basically hold him at gunpoint. But he pretty quickly shows them, like, just so you know, that like the girl that he liked was her Ellie or
Edie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's right in here. You want to go see her? And,
Yeah. Nice twist there.
yeah.
Yeah, you're coming to get me, but let me show you what we're holding hostage.
And then she supposedly gets killed at the very end. We don't ever see any of that, but we just hear from the police officer. Oh yeah, we found her dead in a hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 days ago.
It's like, geez, this
Yeah, that was a complete blind
Kaiser
side.
Soze is just totally. What did you think of that scene where they were showing like the legend of Kaiser Soze, where he shoots his whole family
Mm-hmm.
and lets
That
the one
was
criminal go?
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. And in those, they showed his face in those scenes, but then they're just throwing in some random, because it's legend, so it's like not the actual guy. It's just some people's idea of what he might look like.
Right, right.
He's like got long hair down, looks like a
Yeah.
action star or something.
Well, I mean, yeah, he's Middle Eastern,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah, what they thought, maybe Turkish.
Turkish, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, is that all just possibly that's all just total fantasy, and it's actually this white guy Kevin Spacey?
Okay. It sounds like this is a good place for me to interject my favorite part.
Okay.
You guys have any idea what it might be?
The police lineup?
No. No. It's when he sits there and he says, "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he did not exist."
Ah, very good point. Very good
And
point.
for me, that wrapped the whole movie up.
Yes.
Is Kaiser Sose real? Who is it? Doesn't matter, because,
Yeah.
as he said right before that, he's like, after this, my guess is you'll never hear from him again.
And literally, the detective walks out on the street
And
and
gone.
The,
Oof.
yep.
But you know what I'm saying? So now, maybe Kaiser Sose is not real. Maybe something else went down on that boat, and nobody really knows why. But it was just made up that it was a witness to Kaiser Sose. And, you know,
Yeah.
so Justin, when you were saying, you know, did he really kill his whole family? What kind of story is that? Where did it come from?
Mm-hmm.
The devil quote kind of wraps it up for me. You know, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing people he didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Kaiser Sose is not real at all.
I was going to say, I don't think Kaiser Sose was real. I think that part was just made up. But when with that line right there, that throws the theory completely out the window, puts a question mark where there used to be a period. It's like,
Mhm.
okay.
So yeah, no, maybe he does exist. Maybe he is a great mystery. Maybe it's just for this job, you know, to accomplish a goal that nobody knows about. It's kind of crazy.
Well, for a moment, let's assume that Kevin Spacey's character, Verbal, is Kaiser. How long would he have had to, like, created this whole ruse of, like, the crippled guy walking around? Like, how long had he and Keaton known each other? I mean, how long has this whole thing been in the making? If that's what's going on, that Kevin Spacey pretended to be a gimp.
Here's the
like,
problem, though.
Years and years ago, and
That was just his story. None of this was, you know, like, did you notice that Redfoot wasn't really credited in the credits?
No.
Because he might not have existed.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think of it in terms of the story, he was made up. So there wasn't really a character.
But Keaton and Verbal knew each other from somewhere. They probably said where it was or whatever, but
Yeah, they ran into each other at one point.
yeah, I wonder just how long ago that was.
But see, yeah, I mean, but then again, he told him that they ran into each other. So maybe they didn't.
Right, I see what you're saying. That's a
See, he could have been making up the whole story. All they know is Keaton is dead, maybe. You know, and they talked to him about, why didn't you shoot Keaton knowing he was doing all this? He's like, how do you shoot the devil in the back? What if you miss?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so he prized himself out of any crime that may or may not have existed based on a boat that just burned up and
Boy.
blew up. So there's no remains of anything.
They did get them. They were in a lineup, and they were in that little holding real. That's like undisputed. That part at least.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's what started it all.
Yeah. So they were
So,
all in the lineup.
Keaton
They were
knew
all in the
that.
holding
He's like,
cell.
oh, yeah,
Someone
he's
gathered them all
okay.
up, and then after that, they all disappeared except for Kevin Spacey.
Right. But
So
at
what?
that point, Keaton's character knew him, and it was like, he's all right. I know him from back when or whatever.
The police didn't know that he knew him. He just told them the story of when they were in the cell together.
Right.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's
anything could be. Yeah.
yeah. Other than they
Wow.
were all in the lineup
I didn't
together.
think of that. That's interesting.
So it's kind of crazy to think through those terms. So yeah.
Everything. Yeah.
Verbal's the only one that came out, so it's all based on his story.
So here's what's crazy is a lot of times some of these movies I'll be a little hazy on, and then once we sit down and talk, it's like it
you're
all,
like,
it all comes out
yeah.
washed. Now I'm like, I'm just as confused now as I want.
Well, I mean, and that's why I really like this movie and why I was going to suggest it and why it was on my list is because once you kind of once you open up that rabbit's hole, then it branches into 15 different other rabbit's holes.
Yeah.
And you got to go back to, yes, the only contact they really had and the only link the police had to anything was they were all in that lineup.
Yeah.
And nobody knew how they got in that lineup together.
Yeah.
There was a truck heist. They were suspects, but they were the usual suspects in any type of heist.
Right.
And the oddball was the Byrne character, Dean, who was the cop, or ex-cop. He was the one, why did he get in there? And they couldn't figure it out. Well, then Verbal weaved this story as to how he got in there. And then you got this trail of dead bodies, including the, Edie, his lady friend, who was a lawyer.
And yet Verbal has immunity, so technically Verbal doesn't
Where's
have
the immunity coming from?
Yeah, okay, so I didn't miss something, and so I couldn't figure out where Verbal...
He didn't break a law. He was just someone that was in the lineup with the other...
Well, he said something about he was going to have to do 6 months hard time.
Oh, he kept telling him he's going to because he...
guns or something.
Well, because he had, in his story, he had guns and was going to shoot Keaton in the back. But they ended up not prosecuting him because they couldn't prove he had guns.
Okay.
He was just a usual suspect in a truck heist.
Okay. Now that's making a little more sense.
Yeah, but they were threatening him to tell him they had him over a barrel, and therefore he had to tell them. So he pretended as if they did have him over a barrel, and then he told them a big story.
Yeah.
He gave in.
Yeah.
So really, the only ones we know that were real were the lineup guys, who all died in the story. And then, which, I mean, they did die. They found bodies, I guess, including Edie.
Totally burned up.
And then, yeah, the only real ones were Kobayashi and, Kevin Spacey's character, who was either Virgil or Kaiser Sose, one of the two. They were the only real ones.
All right.
Wild ride.
Yeah, plot twist.
Yep. Yeah, my dad, Joe, don't feel bad. My dad was totally like, what the heck just happened?
I think, and honestly, I've seen it four times at least. So, and that's why I say each time I watch it, I kind of figure out a little more. So.
Because my dad would see something and kind of get hung up on it. He's like, well, no, but, Kevin Spacey's character was doing this. I'm like, no, that's what he's telling them happened. They're showing what, like, the story of what he's saying. But that doesn't mean it's still up for interpretation. So stuff like that. But, yeah, I didn't even think of the other part that, he was totally making up.
Yeah, he made up the whole thing, apparently. If you look at the board.
That Keaton knew him and all that. Those were flashbacks, and those weren't real.
Right.
Of Keaton actually
talking. Yeah, they might not ever even cross paths other than line up in the jail cell.
Crazy. Mind blown.
Yeah. And they're talking about the other ones dying. I mean, they didn't really find them.
Yeah, they just found charred bodies, so we don't know who.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays they do DNA and all that, blah, 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 and you know who they are regardless. But, I mean, there's a bunch of bodies on the boat. That's all they knew at that point.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of bodies on the boat.
Yeah, it's kind of amusing that the cop was so convinced he had put it all together and found out, and he knew it was Keaton behind everything, and then, the real guy possibly, we don't know, walks out the station.
Mike suspecting.
But losing his limp and totally, that kind of, and plus the whole scene where he realizes this guy isn't a simple guy. He actually just was looking at stuff around the room and making up crazy stories.
Well, and he had several quotes that really baffled me. One of them was, "A man can convince anyone that he's someone else, but never himself."
Hmm.
Yeah, so he's selling a heck of a story.
Wow. Totally different type of movie. It's like
Yes.
Clue, but I think like a little bit, yeah, more adult version,
Yeah,
a
and
little more violent, a little more.
Well,
so just so to set it straight here, there were only 2 survivors that come out of that whole deal. It was the guy that gave the drawing,
right.
Yeah.
and then Verbal.
Yes.
Everybody else dead.
Yeah,
And I'm pretty sure the burn guy was dying.
the burn guy.
Yeah.
I thought I was just waiting for Kaiser to get to him, but I guess he couldn't because he was.
Yeah. Well, as he said, Kaiser Sose. He quoted Kaiser Sose. Or no, Kobayashi said it. I think one cannot be burned if he has no people, or something like. One cannot be betrayed if he has no people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Here's one thing that just popped in my head that I did not catch last night.
yeah.
So the burn victim, when the detective shows up, wants to interview him, the nurses, you got to put on all this protective gear, you got to put on the mask.
Yeah.
Because of infection, but yet at the end of the movie, how many people are in that room and
Oh,
they're
yeah,
not a one of them wearing a mask? It's
Yeah.
like, no, wait a minute.
Yeah, they're like, it doesn't matter. He's dying anyway, and we got to have this right now. It's kind of funny. I like at the end too. He's like, Kaiser Sose, how you doing, Keaton? I can't feel my legs, Kaiser. Are you ready? What time is it? 12:30. And then he shoots him.
Yeah, that was interesting. But yeah, okay. So that was real then. That exchange happened because that's a real scene. That's not him telling a police officer something. So yeah, at least in that moment, it seemed like Keaton kind of realized he had been duped
Yeah.
because he says, even though he doesn't know what Kaiser looks like, he kind of figures it out. He's like, "Hey, Kaiser." Yeah, I don't know.
I really liked the lineup scene too. It made me giggle. I was just looking through some facts here and some of the lines, and when they're in the lineup and they tell him to step up and give the line, from what they did to the driver, and Fenster
Yeah.
gives his, and he's like, in English, please. And he looks at it like, excuse me? Like, in English, please?
And he does it again, just as badly. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, whatever.
That scene, the lineup scene, that was actually supposed to be really serious, and then the director actually got mad because the guys couldn't do it seriously. They just kept cutting up, so finally they just left it in there.
Yeah,
like,
well, apparently Fenster was farting,
yeah.
and they were all giggling about it. I like it too, though. He's like, McManus told us a whole nother story altogether, and Fenster's like, oh yeah, the one about the hooker with dysentery. It's like, who says something like that? That's so crazy. That's such a good one-liner.
Yeah. Crazy movie. What do you think? Wrap it up. Get to.
I'm anxious to see. For some
Final
reason, I think
reflections?
I think we're all going. I don't think any of the three of us are going to be on the same level as far as rating. I just have this gut feeling. So, who wants to go first?
I'll go. Stylistically and everything, I was like, I don't know. It felt 90s and it felt a little odd and there was something strange about the movie that I was not totally on board with, and I was ready to give it a medium. But honestly, Dave showing another layer of it that I didn't even realize.
Get some of that.
It gets some more credit because these things that I was saying, well, no, they showed it this and that, and I'm kind of breaking my own rule that I was given to my dad, was that no, just because you see something doesn't mean it's real. And Dave just showed another layer of something that I assumed, like, well, Keaton and he knew each other. They kept showing them talking to each other, but then I'm realizing that was totally could have been a fabrication. So there's like some layers to this that I have to tip my hat to. That yeah, putting this together in that amount of time and with a limited budget and creating a movie that is not cookie cutter at all. It is just a little bit challenging, and yeah, I gotta give it some credit. I'm bumping it up to a large.
Oh,
Wow.
gosh. All right.
Yeah.
Joe, you want me to go?
That doesn't matter to me.
I'm going Mop Bucket. just because
I'm not surprised.
yeah, I really like these think piece movies that make you walk away, and I like the ones you can watch 4 times and still find something else in it that makes you think. And I like the whole idea of just being a whole movie where it's just a continual plot twist keeps you on your toes.
Right.
And they even had an explosion in there for you, Joe. So, but I like the whole idea of, man, you got to really listen to what he said.
Yeah.
You got to really think it through and how that plays out and what that added into it. So
Right.
yeah, to me it's a mop bucket. I would tell everybody, you got to watch this movie, and you got to, and it's not, in my mind, Justin, I agree with you. It's not an entertaining movie. It's not a movie that's going to be like, I don't know, name one of your favorite movies, Joe.
It's not like Ocean's 11 or Ocean's.
Yeah, Ocean's 11's kind of cute and funny and has some good one-liners here and there. This movie's more of you got to want to sit and think about it and kind of get enveloped in the story.
Well, and it's, if you've watched Reservoir Dogs,
yeah,
it's nothing like that.
It seems like kind of film noir or something. That there's just kind of this mystery all the time, and the music is just and the zoom in. They do kind of long zooms on like a detective kind of smoking a cigar or whatever. I don't know. It's kind of weird quality to it.
Yeah, it's completely in its own category almost.
Yeah. So yeah, mop bucket for me.
All right, so you.
I was on the border of the overflowing large, but I don't know. I mean, I like it.
I would say it's on the top of your list, so I mean it's no surprise.
Yeah. All right, so go ahead, Joseph.
Okay, so I'm going to be the bubble buster. So I'm going, but just let me explain before you blow your stack, Dave. I can see like.
No, yeah. Hey, this is why they have 3 of us. That's why we're a panel.
So
just because you don't appreciate good art, that's okay.
I'm going overflowing small with an asterisk. So the asterisk is, from my standpoint, Justin and I, this is just the first time watching through.
Mm-hmm.
And very rarely do I go back and like where Justin did his due diligence to research. I don't like to do, there's times you have to. But I always just try to like watch it one time through just to get the gut reaction of, okay, what did I miss? What did I not? And what got me was where I was confused through a lot of it, where they're flipping back and forth. That's what got me. Now, the asterisk is, I think if I go back and watch it again, I'll probably be right in the same ballpark with you guys. But just the initial first runtime through, overflowing small with an asterisk.
Okay. I mean, and I understand that. This is not a movie for everybody.
Right.
It's only got one explosion.
No. There's a couple. Because they showed the same explosion at the beginning and the end.
It's weird. I don't think I've ever walked away from a movie initially thinking I didn't really like that much, and like just the way it looked and the way it was.
The way it played out.
Like just the seeing it, but then the thinking part of it, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Then, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
like the seeing visual part of it, I was like, I don't really like this.
Well, that's
it's
like
not great, and then.
Well, just the 3 of us sitting here, each of us thought we had it all figured out to the best of our knowledge. And as we're sitting here, I just watched you, Justin, like where you had said it had to be this. Dave said, "What about this?" And you're going, "Oh." It just completely changed everything, and that's one. And I think that's what makes the movie good is, Dave's seen it 4 times, and we've seen it. This is our first time run through.
Yeah, it's hard. First time I saw it, I was like, yeah.
And
like 11 o'clock last night, when the credits rolled, I was like, small or medium. Maybe 20 minutes later, talking with my dad about it, I'm like, okay, definitely medium. Talking about all the twists, and then, 12 hours later or whatever, I'm here.
Yeah.
What would your dad rate it, do you think?
He said a medium. It was a medium.
Okay.
But I think,
Did Cena watch this with you, Jeff?
Yes.
What'd she think?
She was like me. She was confused.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's one of those. This is almost like a companion piece. If you watch the movie, listen to this show, and then go back and rewatch it, I think your rating would go higher.
Yeah,
And I think Rotten Tomatoes has it certified fresh. I think it's one of those. If you watch it more than once, absolutely, it would be a much higher rated movie.
Yeah,
it justifies that rating. if you go back and watch it again, and I
Yeah.
think that's why
I
people
agree.
watch it so many times, is because you miss so much the first time through. It's like, okay, now it's making sense.
Yeah, because
That-
there's a lot of lines in there that, and I'll give you an example just because you're on that train of thought that I have pulled up here on the screen. You know, Dave Cujon tells him in the police office, like, let me get right to the point. I'm smarter than you, and I'm going to find out what I want to know, and I'm going to get it from you whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Now, if you watch it again, now that I've said that, you'll catch that line, and you'll be like, crap. Verbal plays him
Yeah.
right off the bat because he goes, I'm not a rat.
Yeah.
Well, then it becomes about whether he's a rat or not.
Yeah.
But the whole time he's making up a fabricated story,
Yeah,
so
it's all
he's
lies.
not a rat.
Yeah.
Technically,
Right.
because everybody's dead.
Right. Yeah.
And he tells a story that's probably not true.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. That's why.
So he didn't rat anybody out.
Yeah. I give it an overflowing small, but it's not a.
Yeah.
It's not a stinker. Don't watch it. It's one of those. You really have to pay attention, and it's one of those. Don't be surprised if you have to watch it twice just to get the whole story. And
Yeah.
even then, you've watched it 4 times, Dave, and you still don't have the full story.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's still gaps that it doesn't. You can watch it 100 times, and okay, which part was real and which part was Memorex? You just don't know.
Yeah. And he gives a little bit. I don't know if you remember this part either, but the policeman gives a little bit of overview. Dean Keaton was dead. Did you know that? He died 2 years ago in a fire. You know, and the people that were going to testify against him, they died. And
Yeah.
you know, so 2 witnesses, they're dead. One killed himself in a car. The other one fell down an open elevator shaft.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to figure out. I was like, okay, if he died, then why did the witnesses have to
Well,
die?
he said he was dead long enough just for the murder rap to blow over, and then he had lunch.
So if you like a good thinking piece, this is definitely a must watch.
Hold on to your pants though.
But yeah.
You gotta know. You gotta go in knowing you're in for. It's gonna get crazy.
Yeah, and like Justin said, don't go get a glass of water. Have your water, your snacks, potty break, have everything done before you sit down. And this is a full on pay attention all the way through, because if you blink at the wrong time, you're gonna miss half the story.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting deal.
So interesting pick.
Good pick. Yeah, a unique pick. A different sort of movie than what I was expecting at all. I thought it was kind of just gonna be kind of a violent criminals. A little bit of twist here and there. I didn't realize the level of twist that we're in for.
Yeah. When
So,
Dave was comparing it to
yeah.
Reservoir Dogs, I was thinking, okay, we're gonna watch a situation play out, which in a roundabout way we did.
Yeah.
Because you see the first 5 minutes, and the last 20 minutes, you see the whole thing play out, but everything in the middle, it's just, it's crazy. That's the only thing I can describe it as.
Yeah. And it's kind of crazy when he describes Kaiser Sose. I mean, I was almost enthralled with, man, this mystery shrouding this character. You know, in Verbal at one point he's like, yeah, and he lets the last Hungarian go. He waits until his wife and kids are in the ground, then he goes after the rest of the mob, kills their kids, their wives, their parents' friends. He burns down their houses, the stores, kills everyone that owes them money, and then he was gone. Nobody ever seen him since. He's a myth. You know. And in the story, you know, he compared him to the boogeyman. You know, you rat on your pop, Kaiser Sose, come get you.
Yeah.
And they, you know, one of the more poignant lines as well is when he's like, "Do you believe in him, Verbal?" This is what the policeman asked. He's like, "Do you believe in him?" He goes, "Well, you know, I don't believe in God, but I'm afraid of him." And I was like, man, you know, that's a powerful line as well.
And then he also said, like, I believe in God, but the only person I'm afraid of is
Kaiser
Kaiser.
Sose, yeah. So he's
Only thing I'm
twisting
afraid of.
this riddle around to where it's crazy. You know, and he tells him, he's like, you have immunity from the DA, but not from me, you know, and he's like, well, why should I be afraid? And he's like, because if we're going to turn you loose on the street, and Kaiser Sose is going to get you. You know, and that apparently scares him, but
Yeah.
in the
Or
end, that's what he wanted, you know,
Yeah.
turn me loose on the street, you're right.
Yeah.
Let's follow up on your threat.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You're welcome, Justin.
Well, I've got my pick. If you guys want to hear it.
Okay.
What? Already?
Yep. Have you guys ever heard of The Room?
Uh-oh. The Room?
Really?
So this is a two-parter. there's a little bit of research if you want to do it ahead of time. The Room is regarded by many as the worst movie ever made. So if you Google The Room full movie, you can pull it up on YouTube. You can skip around, see how terrible it is, or you can watch the whole thing if you want to sit through and. Because it's kind of a cult classic. People get together and watch this just to laugh at it because it's someone actually tried to make a good movie, and this is what came out. So my pick is The Disaster Artist, and it's on streaming on Netflix.
Also, you're not going to do The Room?
Nope. The Disaster Artist is The Room.
That's what he made as the movie.
It's an homage to the worst movie ever made, but it's a 2017 movie. Yep.
Okay, so I'm confused here. So the Disaster Room or
No, Disaster Artist.
the Disaster Artist or The Room's the worst movie ever made?
The Room is supposedly the worst movie ever made, and then
Okay.
they made, what you call it, a montage?
An homage to
The Room is the Disaster Artist movie.
Okay.
So we're gonna watch the Disaster Artist,
Yeah.
which is a homage to The Room.
Okay.
We'll watch The Disaster Artist, but if you want to see what the movie is that they're kind of making fun of and
I've seen this.
referencing,
You've seen this?
I've seen it.
Okay.
Have you seen it, Justin?
Nope.
Like, is this gonna be funny or is this like?
It's
Is Justin setting himself up for like a lot of punishment next week?
I think you'll. Joe, it doesn't have any explosions.
Hey, yeah. Hey, you've got to give me a little credit here. Some of my tastes have improved. There's been some highly rated movies that didn't have a single explosion in, so you got to give me a little.
Name
credit.
one.
What was the one we just did?
Usual Suspects. It had 2 explosions. You reminded me one at the beginning, one at the
Yeah,
end.
and I
But they were
ranked
the
it pretty
same.
small though.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It only had 1. Therefore, it got a small popcorn.
Ocean's 12 didn't have any explosions.
Well, Dave, since you've seen The Disaster Artist already, you can watch The Room.
Peanut Butter Falcon didn't have any
Front to
explosions.
back.
Yeah, they shot a gun or 2. He did too. They blew up the boat dock.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
Yeah, get some of the. Yeah, Joe. Come on now. Don't quiz me on my movies, Joe. I've only seen The Disaster Artist once, and I kind of only half paid attention to it. So I'll be happy to watch it through and critique it this time.
Yeah,
So
I haven't seen it.
I was.
it's who's in it though? It's got
James Franco.
James Franco and the other guy
His
that's
little brother.
yeah. What's his name? Dean? No. What the heck is his name?
Well, when Justin said
Dave Franco,
Yeah.
Seth Rogen, Zac Efron,
Yeah.
Allison Brie.
Yeah.
I
So
w- I was hoping Justin would go with The Room when he said it's ranked the worst movie ever ever
Well,
made. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be fun next
You
week.
should research it a little bit though, Joe.
Oh no.
Watch like 15 minutes of The Room on YouTube. It's pretty hilarious how bad it is. Like you can, like there's a scene on the rooftop that's kind of famous because they had a real rooftop, but then they created a fake backdrop of a city, and it's just obvious that it's like a poster, basically.
I almost want to politic for us to have to watch The Room just to have a comparison so we have a better understanding of this cult classic deal, kind of.
Yeah, I think it definitely would help to. Yeah, most people that see The Disaster Artist had seen The Room because it had become such a big thing where people got together to watch one of the worst movies ever made that that's how he heard about it and ended up wanting to make this movie, The Disaster Artist.
So now I got to watch The Room too.
It might be worth a watch if you want some comedy.
Well, I gotta say, there's some points in the Disaster Artist that are kind of just like, yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, I think there probably is definitely some references that could be missed if you haven't seen The Room.
Well, and it's not that. It's just I didn't I didn't give it my full attention, so now I will.
Okay.
I'm excited. I might try to watch The Room too, though.
At least skip around to some different scenes in The Room and
Yeah.
have a laugh before you watch The Disaster Artist. That's what I recommend.
So have you seen The Room?
Yeah, most of it.
Mo-
I mean, there's some parts you just can't sit through, but
So Justin, are you? So you've not watched the Disaster Artist, right?
correct.
Okay.
I've only
So
seen The Room.
so Are you prepared for the potential slaying next week of?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
James Franco usually keeps me pretty entertained, and
well,
I don't think it's a. I'll say right now, it's not a complete dud.
Okay.
it's got a 91% on the tomato meter, so I figured let's give it a shot. And it's on Netflix. So
Because I mean,
it's got a lot of stuff going for it.
well, Justin throws stuff like this at us, and you know, when he says, you know, it's based on the worst movie ever made,
Yeah.
I'm kind of hesitant.
Well,
But
that's what drew me in. Is like we talk movies, so it's kind of interesting to talk a little bit about
right.
one of the like a terrible movie.
But
to
you can't.
reference it. Yeah.
But you kind of throw Dave and I on these wild rides of just completely out of left field movies, and we get hesitant, and more often than not you hit them out of the park. So it's one of those, I want to be hesitant because you said it's based on the based on the worst movie ever made. But with your track record, it's one of those you really can't argue with the numbers when the numbers show like Justin's hit a lot of them out of the park. It's kind of hard to question your movie pick. So
I'm always trying to give you a little bit of a scratching your head a little bit beforehand.
As long as I'm not scratching my head after we're going, why did Justin pick this? We're going to be okay. Well, because I think the lowest one, well, I mean, other than one of the Mad Max movies, I think.
Yeah, we won't talk about that.
Yeah, everybody
or
gets.
the general.
Yeah, everybody gets a pass. The general, and the only reason the general got so much grief was just because it was what we was sold and what we got was two different things.
Yeah. Well, you want to take it home, Joe?
All right,
Anything else we got to discuss, Dave?
Dave, are you good?
I'm still caught up in whether I'm watching two movies or one. I was reading through some of the Room stuff here, and
if you have
yeah,
time,
I got some work to do
I
because
think it's definitely worth at least watching some of the main famous scenes in the Room.
Okay.
yeah,
Like
because
the
I would.
rooftop scene and
From what I'm looking at, it would help you So this is what I would suggest, Joe, since you're kind of not knowing either one of them. I would suggest you do what Justin's suggesting here, and watch some of the clips of The Room, and then watch the movie. It'll make more sense.
Okay.
Because I had no idea what The Room was when I watched The Disaster Artist, so therefore I didn't have any reference points.
Okay.
And from what I'm reading here, and I'm looking at it a little bit, I didn't watch any of the stuff, but I'm looking at it, and I'm like, that makes so much sense now.
Okay.
So now I want to go back and watch The Disaster Artist.
Throwing football in an alley, like awkwardly, in The Room. Because The Room is like, this guy, Tommy Wiseau, came upon a bunch of money, basically, to say, I'm going to make my own movie. So he's trying to make like a serious movie, and there's like friends throwing a football in an alley. And he was being totally serious, but people were like, this is so corny and funny.
Okay, so
He doesn't know how to throw a football.
so do we want so let me ask you guys this. I don't want to take away from Justin's turn, but do we want to watch The Room first, discuss it next week?
I think you just go watch some clips.
Okay.
I think because I don't think it, from what I understand, from what I'm reading, it's not worth watching the whole movie.
Well, but that would make it a more entertaining show.
Maybe. But I think if you just,
watch as
if
much
you
as
have
you
time,
can.
but I
was
would
gonna
say
say-
watch some clips, but make sure you watch The Disaster Artist.
I was gonna say,
That's the thing, yeah.
or we could do The Room. We could break our own rule on this one. Like The Room, just watch it until you have to pause it and then write down where you stopped at, and then we
Oh,
could compare
gosh.
notes.
Might do that as well, but
Yeah.
The Disaster Artist, I think, will give you enough taste of what The Room is
Okay.
that you won't necessarily have to watch the whole Room. That's why I'm
Okay.
hesitant here.
Okay, so we'll do Justin's pick, but let's all make our own little note of where we stopped at on
Yeah,
The Room.
Maybe I'll text you guys like, there's.
I made it in
there's
30
a scene
seconds.
In, 22 minutes that you gotta watch, like
Okay.
something like that, so you don't have to sit through the whole thing.
Okay.
I'll find some scenes in The Room that
Okay.
are terrible and
Yeah,
hilarious
you at least get us
and
some
how
time
bad they
points where we have to at least sit through.
Because like the rooftop scene is a must, and then there's probably a couple others. The throwing the football scene is.
Okay. So
I'll figure it out.
okay. Yeah, that's more work on your end, but that'll work. At least you can hit us with the high points on The
Yeah.
Room, and then definitely watch The Disaster Artist.
Sounds good.
That'll work.
Interesting. I like it, Justin.
All right.
All right, Joe, take us home.
All right. So, for all of our news and reviews, be sure to visit our website at beentherewatchthat.com. Follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at BTWT Pod for all that. And send us reviews and suggestions. Was we right on task on the movie? Was we way off on our pick, on our ratings? And send us our list. We have an ongoing list of movie picks that fans have submitted to us, and we'd love to add your movie to the list. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Been there, watch that. It's on all the major podcast platforms. It's all hosted by Anchor.fm.
Okay. Well, been there, watch that, and we're rolling right along. So everyone, thank you for joining us. We're here in our studio in Spencer, West Virginia. Myself, Joe, and Justin. We'll be back next week with The Disaster Artist and some semblance of The Room. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, gentlemen, until next week.
We'll see you then.